You had mentioned in our messaging earlier, Ed, about the Bidens. Or the Biden stuff, as you put it, and I'm curious. I'm curious to know, hear more about that. I assume it's got a lot to do with Hunter Biden and so forth. But I am curious. I'll kind of give you the floor on that. What we should know about that.
Well, okay, I have a little bit of involvement in the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Oh.
And I've also had some, all of the guests. I've had several guests on the show who are intimately and personally, directly involved and still friends with in obtaining the Hunter Biden laptop from Dr. Keith Ablow's house. And they're all still friends with Giuliani and Rich Costello and all these fellows who were behind Bernie Kerik. They're still friends with those pro-Trump, anti-Hunter Biden guys.
Yeah.
But I've brought them on the show and carefully extracted little bits of information from them, okay?
Yeah.
That kind of lays out the true story of what happened in the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Okay.
But my involvement goes back to Stormy Daniels, okay?
Okay.
And if you watched recently, there's this indictment now of Trump, and Michael Cohen is testifying against Trump. Anybody who's ever listened to my show, you hear one of the commercials at the beginning of the show is Keith M. Davidson. And Keith M. Davidson was the first attorney for Stormy Daniels.
Okay.
He's the one who negotiated the original deal for Stormy Daniels for $130,000 with Michael Cohen.
Oh.
And he's testified before this grand jury right now today. Keith Davidson is to this day my client and also a sponsor of my show.
And by the way, he has no, I assume, or you wouldn't be doing it, but just for the sake of clarification, he has no problem with you talking about all of this.
No, as a matter of fact, there's a book out called The Fixers, The Bottom Feeders, Crooked Lawyers, Gossip Mongers, and Porn Stars Who Created the 45th President, written by Joe Palazzola and Michael Rothfeld. And it was Mr. Davidson who put me in touch with them and said, hey, I want you to talk to this scrappy PI. It's all about what's going on in this case. So I'm actually a source for that book.
Okay.
And that's the Bible of the story of the Stormy Daniels case.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
according to
Now-
Wikipedia, he's a Beverly Hills attorney, and he was started in the about 10 years ago. One of his things is negotiating over non-disclosure agreements, and he was also involved not only with Stormy Daniels, but with the Playboy Playmate Karen McDougal, who also, allegedly was paid hush money by Trump.
Okay. All right.
I'm at the
Well,
news
and
desk.
also, too, in that situation, too, Stormy Daniels' agent, her manager, was Gina Rodriguez, who was also a client of mine, or previously was a client of mine. And for a period of time, she was also my agent, too, as well. And then, of course, Dylan Howard, who was involved in that whole deal, who's a friend of mine. And I've also consulted with AMI, Mr. Pecker. So intimately involved in knowledge of all the situation here.
Okay.
And when Mr. Rich Costello showed up to testify at the grand jury right before the closing of the grand jury to discredit Michael Cohen, he was standing up there after doing a live press conference, holding up this book, The Fixers, The Bottom Feeders, Crooked Lawyers, Gossip Mongers, and Porn Stars Who Created the 45th President. He's holding it up with the yellow Post-its at the pages that he wanted to share with the grand jury. And coincidentally, I just happened to be playing that repeat at the exact same time. Okay.
No kidding.
So now, I first heard about this whole situation with Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal back in around 2015. I was hired to work on a lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein, and I was shopping around for an attorney. And that's when I first heard about all this stuff going on behind the scenes with these women and these porn stars coming forward with Playboy magazine and all this kind of stuff. My next, and Rich Costello and all this, believe it or not, connects to the Hunter Biden laptop.
Okay.
Now, how I got involved with the Hunter Biden laptop story. You remember John Benet Ramsey?
Oh, yes.
Of course.
Absolutely, yeah.
The child that was
Remember that fellow,
murdered.
John Mark Carr?
John Mark Carr. That's a familiar name.
No.
He confessed to the murdering John Benet Ramsey. He was over in Taiwan. He was going through a sex change operation. and they brought him back here. He was facing child pornography charges here in the United States. But for some reason, the local sheriff's department that had his laptop with all this child pornography on it sold his laptop, sold the evidence at a garage sale.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Yep.
Jeez.
So this John Mark Carr, he was a weird guy. I always kept my eye on him, and I saw a story one time in the news years and years ago, like around 2013, about how he had this young woman, Samantha Spiegel, 19 years old at the time, had to get a restraining order against him because she had entered into a relationship with him when she had first met him when she was 9 years old, and he was a teacher's aide at her Catholic school in San Francisco. When she saw him on the news about this John Benet Ramsey story, she contacted him, and they entered into a relationship where he actually wanted her to help him, according to Samantha Spiegel. He wanted her to help him kidnap little girls around John Benet Ramsey's age and style and look, and have a little cult of little girls, John Benet Ramsey cult for John Mark Carr, who was a seriously sick guy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, clearly.
Yeah. Everyone involved with him winds up getting a restraining order against him, except for myself so far. I see this story, and I contact Samantha Spiegel, and I bring her on the show. It was very difficult to book her and find her, so when I finally got a hold of her, I says, hey, let's record this right this minute.
Yeah.
I didn't want to lose.
Yeah.
Toward the end of the interview, we're going over the whole stuff, her relationship with Carr and all this, a lot of stuff she's involved with. Toward the end of the interview, she blurts out, and I had a sexual affair with Dr. Keith Abloh. Okay?
Wow.
And he had me in an abusive S&M relationship. He had me get tattoos. I'm saying, whoa, hold on. Dr. Keith Abloh, the Fox News contributor? She goes, yes. And I says, has this ever been reported anywhere else before? She goes, no, I'm telling you for the first time anywhere.
Wow.
So I said, okay, well, let's bleep out his name for now. Okay?
Yeah.
All right? I don't know if this is true or not. I don't want to get in trouble.
Right. Hey.
But after the interview, I get a hold of her, and I says, listen, if this is true, what you're telling me, that you were abused by Dr. Keith Abloh, we have a lawsuit against him. I want you to speak to one of my clients, one of my attorneys. Right away, we knew. She sent me all this material on Abloh, emails, text messages, all this kind of stuff. It was a very seriously abusive relationship.
So,
okay.
So
we knew we had a case.
So she corroborated it pretty quickly that what she was telling you was true.
Oh yeah, I got a ton of material that even Hunter Biden doesn't know about. Okay, I put together a report on Dr. Keith Abloh that was later used to have his license pulled to practice psychology.
Really?
The Board of Psychological Examiners in Massachusetts declared that he was an imminent threat to the public.
Wow. Okay.
And he was up to some serious stuff. He lost his license. What happened was we were going to sign up Samantha Spiegel for this lawsuit against Abloh and Fox News, by the way, because she met him he was a Fox News contributor.
Yeah.
And she met him because she was a guest on Fox News, and then he called her up. She thought she was going to get therapy, and the first thing out of his mouth is, are you a dirty little whore?
Oh,
that's the first thing this guy says to this young lady who's in a traumatic situation to begin with.
Yeah. You know, by the way, just as a side note, it's hard to believe that anyone at Fox would behave that way. I'm kidding, of course.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? All the way from Roger Ailes all the way down.
Yeah.
By the way, Abloh at one point, just to give you an idea how serious these charges are, he had gotten into an argument with her over the phone. She was in San Francisco. He was in Massachusetts. He had her committed over the phone, and they picked her up in San Francisco, put her in a mental institution, and then when she got out, they reconnected and reestablished their S&M BDSM relationship. Okay.
Wow.
The lawsuit fell apart. Okay, or at least my involvement in the lawsuit fell apart to a certain degree. My client couldn't take it because he was in the middle of this whole Stormy Daniels thing, Keith, and he couldn't take the case, who I wanted to take the case. It wanted someone with other attorneys. Two defendants in that case did prevail and did receive damages from Dr. Keith Abloh. Now, what happens later on, the reason why this is important to the Hunter Biden laptop story is, and a lot of people don't know this, but Hunter Biden, after Keith Abloh was disgraced, lost his license, Hunter Biden went to live with Dr. Keith Abloh in Massachusetts for 3 months.
Really?
Yep.
Now, how does that? So, how does that happen? Were they friends somehow? How does that come about?
That's a good question. Were they friends? One story is he went there to get intensive therapy for all his problems with addiction and sexual addiction and all this kind of stuff that this guy's up to. But, what came out in the Board of Psychological Examiners is that Keith Abloh was up to all that same exact stuff, okay? But for whatever reason, they were living together for 3 months. And for whatever reason, Hunter Biden cuts his visit there short, and when he leaves behind a laptop, a diary, and some other cell phone, some other material at that house. Okay. I start hearing this story because I'm from New York. I know all these guys.
Yeah.
I start hearing the story that there was a book launch party. A fellow named Mr. Bradley Birkenfeld wrote a book called Lucifer's Banker. And this was about Swiss banking accounts and corruption and all these people. He mentions the Bidens quite a bit. He has a beef with the Bidens. He doesn't like them. He's a Republican. And has all this information about this. He actually got a reward. I think it was $125 million from the IRS.
$104 million.
Whistleblowing on people that were misusing the Swiss banking system. Okay? He's got this book launch party in New York City. Who attends the book launch party? Bernie Kerik, Rudy Giuliani, Mr. Rich Costello. Remember Rich Costello? I told you about him, how he was in front of the grand jury with the book, The Fixers.
Yep.
And he's also mentioned in that indictment of Trump as a part of a witness tampering scheme. Because he's very close to Giuliani, and they were trying to get Michael Cohen to hire him as his attorney, to have a guy in there, keeping an eye on things.
Sure.
And he was relaying messages from the White House saying, you have friends in high places, don't worry. He was at this party, too. Rich Costello, Rudy Giuliani, Bernie Kerik, John Kirkawa, the CIA whistleblower, okay, and Bradley Birkenfeld, and also there is Dr. Keith Ablow's brother, who shows up at this meeting and says, hey, we've got this laptop with all this information. Dr. Keith Abloh would like to monetize this laptop. And I have these words coming out of Brad Birkenfeld's mouth on tape, on my show.
Wow.
So the guys I went and found all these guys at the meeting and interviewed them about their books or different stories just to get these one lines out of them.
Yeah.
Just to get to this story, man, okay? All right.
Wow.
Ablow's brother says, we want between $2 and $3 million for this laptop, okay? Now, that's got to tell you, now, if he came up with this figure, he knows what's on his laptop. I got to tell you that there's some serious stuff on his laptop, right?
But when let me just ask you, Ed. So when he's saying this, though, when he's saying this is how much money we want for this laptop, how does anyone he's saying this to know that what's on the laptop is actually worth anything? Like, how was that part presented? Because if you're going to try to sell this to somebody, you've got to make them believe that there is something, and you say that there was something significant on it apparently. But how does he pitch it when he's pitching, hey, you want to buy this laptop, I'll give it to you for $2 or $3 million, it's pretty valuable.
Right. Well, in deals like that, I'm working on one right now, some opposition research, political candidate opposition research. And what you'll do is you'll have money in escrow. You send people over there to authenticate the information, and then you release the money. That's how that stuff goes. And I'm friends too with Kevin Blatt, the celebrity sex tape broker. I've had him on the show several times. I'm in these circles. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's not a main issue. To verify what's on the laptop later on. As a matter of fact, I had another guest on the show, Patrick Berge, who was all involved with all that January 6th stuff. Yeah. And he was actually hired at one point to go to Rudy Giuliani's apartment and authenticate information that was on the laptop. And wouldn't you know it, 3 days later, after he leaves, that's when the FBI comes and raids Rudy's house, Rudy's apartment. Remember that? And took all his electronics, phones, and all this kind of... Remember that?
I do remember that, yeah.
Well, they took everything but the Hunter Biden laptop.
Wait, so that's where it was? That's where it ended up?
That's where one of them, there's copies of them all over the place.
Okay.
Now get this, the one that's at Keith Ablow's house, and that's the one that's important because that's the one that I have all the information from all these people at the book signing party.
Yeah.
Bo Dietl, New York City private investigator. I've known him since the 80s. Okay, we're no longer friends now because we have different opinions on police shooting unarmed guys. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't quite agree on unarmed people getting shot dead by cops.
Yeah.
We have a difference of opinion on that matter. But Bo Dietl, who's friends with all these guys, Carrick and Rudy, and Birkenfeld, go down to Ablow's house to negotiate the sale of this laptop. And the laptop's sitting over there in Ablow's safe. So negotiations break down on this laptop. They can't come to an agreement. So they leave empty-handed. But wouldn't you know it, and I think it's 3 days later again, in 3 days, like the tomb rolls open every 3 days with this story. 3 days later, who comes knocking at the door? The Drug Enforcement Administration.
Really?
And they come in there, Dr. Keith Ablow, and it's my opinion, too, by the way, that they never could have got this warrant to go in there and go into Dr. Keith Ablow's house if he had not first lost his license, okay,
Yeah.
to practice psychiatry. But the DEA shows up, seizes the laptop, they go to another drugstore with Ablow's writing prescriptions in the names of his employees, and they're splitting half the prescriptions back with him. He's getting prescriptions for ketamine. He got these two young women, the same kind of relationship he had with my client, Miss Spiegel, and he had them move to Massachusetts. He's dosing them with ketamine. This all came out in his license revoking, and his other litigation with him.
Yeah.
But the DEA comes there and they seize this laptop, right? And all this stuff.
Wow.
And, of course, Hunter Biden later on, he's able to get his attorneys to recover that laptop, but not until it appears that the information on that laptop was duplicated and copied and turned back over to Rudy and his guys, who now got it for free. And I even said to Birkenfeld, because he's saying, well, I don't know how this happened. Maybe they had my phones tapped. I said, well, Mr. Birkenfeld, if there's someone in this whole scenario who could possibly get a judge to sign a warrant for the DEA to go in there with a search warrant and seize this laptop, couldn't someone like Rudy Giuliani do that?
Oh.
And he goes, oh, no, I don't think that happened. I couldn't even control myself. I burst out laughing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you listen to these recordings. Okay. So it's Birkenfeld's theory. That's they took that laptop, the material on that laptop, and they sent it over to that fellow over there, the computer repair guy,
Okay.
John Mac Isaacs, who, by the way, has several different variations of his name, too. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
And that supposedly Hunter Biden dropped off some water-damaged equipment there, and he I know how to do computer recovery. You don't go look at pictures in someone's laptop when you're recovering their data. You don't look at it.
Right.
Unless you're bored and you got nothing to do with your life.
Right.
And you'd be spending 12 hours a day doing that.
Although might you, if it's a high profile, if you know it's a high profile figure who either dropped off the laptop or, might you look if you think there might be something worth looking at?
Oh yeah, for me, I'm a private investigator.
Right.
I'm looking for stuff.
Right.
But a computer repair guy, supposedly he didn't even know who Hunter Biden was when he dropped it off.
Oh, okay.
That's later on.
Yeah.
But the thing is, who does in the official story? Remember we talked about this. What's the official story? Then what really happened? In the official story, John Mac Isaacs says that, well, I contacted the police and the FBI, and no one did a damn thing. So I contacted who? Rich Costello, Rudy's pal. The guy who was going to go in there, put in the fix for Michael Cohen. And also, too, at this very same book launch party in New York, I think it was in Washington, D.C., not New York City, I'm mistaken. Rich Costello, according to John Kirkawa, I know I'm mispronouncing his name, I apologize. I've had John on the show twice. I had him on around 2013. And then when I heard about his involvement in this whole laptop story, I had him come back just for that one question. And he was laughing, too, when he heard that I knew the whole story.
Yeah.
John Kirkawa was a CIA whistleblower, and he lost his CIA pension. And they told him he talked to a lobbyist who was handling pardons for Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump was doling out presidential pardons.
Yeah.
That would enable, if Kirkawa was able to get his pardon, then he would receive his CIA pension, which was worth a lot of money to him.
Ah.
And the way he describes it, he brought up, well, hey, what about my pardon for this pension? And Rudy jumps up and says, I got to go hit the can, okay? As a matter of fact, he tells the story first. He says, you know what, let's have lunch instead. Let's have a lunch meeting instead, because by 2 o'clock, Rudy really enjoys scotch. And after 2 o'clock, not much business gets done.
I've heard that.
This is old John Kirkawa out of his own mouth. I have it, I played it on the show.
Yeah.
So he says, well, what about this pardon? Rudy takes off to the bathroom like Michael Corleone,
Yeah.
And Rich Costello says, when nobody talks business in front of Rudy, you talk to me. He goes, if you want the pardon, it's $2 million, right? Now I said to Kirkawa, I said, boy, that's interesting, $2 million, because that's the same amount that was being bandied about the Hunter Biden laptop at that same meeting, at those same conversations. That was $2 million too. So I kind of joked to Mr. Kirkawa. I says, well, did they tell you maybe, because, Kirkawa's a CIA operative, man. He's a serious guy.
Yeah.
I says, did they kind of tell you, hey, if you go get this laptop for us, we'll give you a pardon? Because it's worth $2 million. And even he burst out laughing at that one, too.
Wow.
So this cast of characters, man, okay, and I've been working on this for quite some time, because like I said, I have information straight from the horse's mouth in all these characters involved in this firsthand. Berge, firsthand direct involvement. They had him there, Patrick Berge, they had him at Giuliani's house. At one point, he admitted that it wasn't just to authenticate the laptop. He also admitted there was no child porn on there. But to authenticate the laptop. But they also wanted him to break into passwords and encrypted pages and bank accounts and stuff like that to see more information.
Yeah.
Which is why all the Hunter Biden laptop pictures and images and stuff didn't all come out at once. It came out little by little by little by little.
Oh, okay.
Some stuff coming out months later. Just recently, Lev Parnas. Okay?
Yes, I remember Lev Parnas.
Partner with Giuliani, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lev Parnas begged the January 6th committee and all these different hearings and committees to testify about what he knows about the Hunter Biden laptop. He was just a guest on Michael Cohen's show. And I contacted Mr. Lev Parnas. He's agreed to come on my show. When I told him about the information I got, Now, his version of events is very, very interesting. Lev Parnas is the fellow who arranged the very perfect phone call between President Trump and Zelensky.
Yes,
where he said, hey, dig up dirt on Hunter Biden and then I'll release this money to you.
By the way, just a side note, John Hopwood and I once, we did a reenactment using the transcript of that on the show. I played Trump and John played Zelensky, and it's...
yes, I did.
I dare say it's quite funny. If we do say so ourselves, but that's why John reacted when you mentioned that. But yes,
you got to send it to me. You got to send it.
I will absolutely.
So I was listening to you guys before I started. You guys are really funny together.
Oh, thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah. So Lev Parnas arranged that phone call, and this was an off the cuff. They were having dinner, man. They were all sitting around drinking, and they came, let's call Zelensky. This is like an off the cuff phone call.
Yeah,
that happened. So Lev Parnas revealed some very interesting stuff, because he's no friend of Rudy Giuliani's anymore, okay? And he tells us that the way that Hunter Biden got that job in Ukraine with the energy company, Burisnov, do you know how he got that job?
How? I'm dying to know.
Rudy Giuliani's agent, who used to book Rudy Giuliani for speeches over there in Ukraine, is the one that got him that job over Burisnov.
Oh.
And then what Lev Parnas says, what would happen is...
Small world.
He goes, this guy Biden was a mess. By the way, this is all back in 2019, before anybody heard of any laptops.
Yeah.
Okay? He says, this kid Biden was a mess. He was on drugs. He was a pervert. He's doing all this stuff. And what they would do is the Russian FSB would take him and tell him, hey, man, we got girls for you over at Kazakhstan, and we got all the drugs you want. We'll fly you over there. And when he would go over there with these girls and these drugs, they'd be taping him without him knowing it. And they put all this stuff on what? A laptop.
Oh.
Can I just point out something?
Yeah.
There are places in the former Soviet Union, one of them being Tbilisi, Georgia. They'll have like an international film festival, and I asked a friend who military, I know from my time in military intelligence. Well, what the hell is this big movie star doing there? He says, because Tbilisi is a wide open city where all the drugs and any type of girls available. So that's why this, movie star is showing up in this godforsaken place.
I see.
So when you're mentioning Kazakhstan and that, yeah.
That makes sense.
Why are people showing up in these hellholes? Because there's money under the table, and there's just
we got drugs and girls, baby.
drugs
Come on,
and any age, whatever, what you want, boys, girls, anything.
Wow, no,
But
well, that makes sense.
yeah, stuff like
Because anything
that
goes, yeah.
is one of the lifeblood of politics.
Oh, yeah.
Lyndon Johnson became the most powerful head of the Senate by supplying senators with women and money.
Yep.
And then essentially blackmailing them for their votes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's politics.
Oh, and speaking of blackmail, too, by the way, very interesting. Jared Kushner, how his father got arrested because he wanted to donate all that money to Democrats. He was creating all these phony companies and partnerships and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then he blackmailed his brother-in-law by hooking him up with these hookers and then videotaping it and blackmailing him not to testify against him. Those are Russian teen hookers.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah. But real quick, because I see we're almost out of time, Lev Parnas was on the plane going to Vienna. Who's on the plane with him? Sean Hannity. And who was supposed to be on the plane with him was Rudy Giuliani. An hour before the flight takes off, Rudy Giuliani calls up and says, you know what, I can't make the flight. And the purpose of that trip was Rudy Giuliani was going to go there and pick up the laptop, to pick up the hardware or the contraband, whatever they were calling it.
Yeah.
And Lev Parnas was arrested on that plane on the strip on the airport.
Okay. Wow. Wasn't there somebody else too? Didn't Lev Parnas have a partner who was involved in all this too, whose name escapes me?
His name escapes me as well because he's not doing these interviews and talking like Lev Parnas is.
Gotcha.
Because Lev Parnas, his case is over. He's convicted. He's doing house arrest now. He's serving his time in his home with a tether.
Yeah. So that's how Giuliani gets the laptop? Wait,
it seems like the laptop was a compilation of a lot of different of this FSB blackmail constructed by the Russians.
The laptop, it's real information that was gathered, and then it's put on a laptop.
Okay.
Because the laptop story doesn't really make much sense, but the stuff on it is real.
Okay. And
but I think they needed a physical laptop that at one time did actually belong to what's his name?
To Biden, right?
Right, Biden, and then they wanted that from.
This is dirty. These are dirty tricks. These do it in other ways.
Oh,
back. And Harry Truman, the president of the United States, who had been a U.S. senator, in that until the day he died, he was born 1884. He would never be in a room with a woman unless somebody was there or the door was open.
Really?
Because of the Badger game.
Okay.
A woman is in the room with you, and then the Badger game is, he tried to rape me, or they're a prostitute.
Sure.
They mentioned that because he lived into the 70s, and he would not be in a room alone with a woman.
Right.
Unless the door was open or somebody was there.
I heard the same thing about Bill Clinton, but he would never be in a room with a woman if the door was open.
Right.
I have some stories about Bill Clinton because we're here in the New Hampshire primary.
Yeah. So what's the status of all this now with the laptop? Because I know that it seems like
Hunter's suing.
It gets spoken about a lot less, right? Because supposedly there's this ongoing Department of Justice investigation into Hunter Biden, which hasn't. Fox News has already kind of shrugged their shoulders and given up on it, right? So what's the status of this now? The
biggest problem the biggest problem with the laptop being used as any kind of evidence against the clear crimes of the Biden family. Okay, I'm not excusing these people whatsoever. Is the chain of custody of this information on this laptop.
Exactly.
It's just totally screwed, blued, and tattooed. Man, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
There's no hope of using any of that in court.
Okay, so because it's that makes sense. So it's been compromised. So whatever's on that though. Okay, so I guess it's irrelevant if you can't really do anything.
It's
with
irrelevant in a legal sense.
In a legal sense, yeah. How I was wondering too, Ed. So what is the legality of in terms of the chain of custody? So when Keith Abloh, going back to when he first tried to sell the laptop that Hunter Biden had left at his house, which still blows my mind. Can you, is what he was doing even legal? Like if somebody leaves something at your house and they don't bother to come back for it because, I don't know, maybe they're in Kazakhstan with drugs and women or wherever he ended up. Is it legal? It can't be legal, right, for Keith Abloh to actually sell this, is it?
Well, believe it or not, there's all kinds of gray areas with missing property. Has it been reported stolen? What's the statute of limitations? There's also too, it's not like Abloh was afraid of committing crimes. The guy was committing crimes on a daily basis. And these other characters, man, by the way, Bernie Kerik, who was also at this meeting. I don't know if you're familiar with this whole Lawrence Ray story with the Sarah Lawrence co-eds and stuff like that.
No, all I really remember about Bernie Kerik, I know he was the police commissioner in New York, and then he wanted to Giuliani, I think, he was nominated right by the Bush administration for a high-profile position,
Homeland Security.
Yes, but then it turned out, but then he ended up in prison instead, basically.
Right, and his best man at his wedding was a fellow named Lawrence Ray, who had a CIA background, and also too, when he was Bernie Kerik's best friend and best man at his wedding. And paid for the wedding, too, as a matter of fact, too, and paid for some furniture for him. He was pimping out his girlfriend, okay? And everyone knew this guy was pimping. He was married, he had a girlfriend, and he would pimp out the girlfriend. Years later, he goes down, and his daughter's a student at Sarah Lawrence. He moves into the dorm with her, starts dating one of her roommates at the dorm, and starts pimping her out for $8,000 a day. He's in prison today. I had a 2-hour phone call with this guy, okay, Lawrence Ray. They did a documentary, too, about him, Stolen Innocence on Netflix. You could find him.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. But the thing is, man, he's pimping out this girl for $8,000 a day. She's not a beautiful girl. He's doing it for some stupid little website. He wasn't doing this like a Craigslist ad or an escort service website. He knew the people, the clients that were... Yeah, he knew these people. So
a high-end call girl.
Imagine the blackmail dirt this guy has.
Is it ever, Ed, I'm curious too, is it ever difficult for you doing these interviews? Do you ever find yourself talking to somebody where, you kind of have to force yourself to do it because there's somebody like the individual you were just discussing, somebody who's just so kind of disgusting that you're like, you want to hear what they have to say, but at the same time, it's like you feel kind of gross.
No, because listen, at 19, 20 years old, I would go into Rikers Island and talk to the most horrible people we ever met in our life.
Yeah.
So I'm immune to that. But listeners will say to me, "Hey Ed, how could you have that guest on your show and you're being polite and friendly, you're joking with them?"
Yeah.
Well, because that's how you get the information out of these people,
Exactly.
Otherwise, I'm going to start fighting with the guy? He's going to hang up on me. That's how you get, you have a conversation, you take their statement, and you get the gold.
Yeah, exactly. Of course. No, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. And by the way, so in terms of the laptop, do you think there's anything on there that is, I don't know if you want to answer this or not, or if you want to speculate on it or not, but I'll throw it out there. Is there anything there that you think is directly represents a danger to the president himself?
Well, I think there's a galore information out there that Biden was involved in all this corruption. Hunter Biden was partners with John Kerry's son when Biden was vice president, and their whole operation was traveling around the world with their hands out with paper bags saying, "Put money in this bag, please." Okay, that was their whole business. Yes. They were getting paid off galore. Now this is wide open. Everybody knows this now. But Joe Biden has such chutzpah Okay, that who does he appoint? He points John Kerry to his cabinet. I forget what role it is, some nonsense role. You never see him doing anything.
Oh, climate czar, basically, I think.
Yeah, right. He doesn't distance himself from these criminals, man. He goes right back into bed with them. They're untouchable, these characters. The guy's showering with his daughter. His own son says, I can't be
She was
seen
only
I can't be in
11.
the same room with my niece because I'm naked and I'm smoking crack. This is but how
That's
these people
true.
are not under the prison is beyond me.
So what, like, for example, when you hear, because Hunter apparently, he's making deals and he refers to the big guy, you think that's his
Right.
dad?
Well, I don't know anything specific more than anybody else, but who else could it be?
Right. Wow.
And his
Jenny
father
Craig,
does show up at
Who's the big guy?
Right.
his father does show up at one of the meetings. Information that was suppressed during the election.
There you go. Boy, who do you end up who do you end up supporting politically with all these on either side of the aisle?
That's so obvious.
You got all these terrible people.
Vermin Supreme.
There you go, Vermin Supreme. Do you like Vermin Supreme? You must know.
He'll
You must
probably
know.
know
heard of
something about
Vermin
him.
Supreme. I've never heard of who that is.
He's the guy who wears the boot on his head. No, but you were a Bernie guy, right?
Yeah, I'm not a capitalist, so both the Democrats and the Republicans are on the same side. I am a real socialist. I did support Bernie because he says all the right things, and my plan with Bernie was we organize the people who the Bernie supporters, the volunteers. They're not afraid of the word socialism. We organize them in the future, okay? Because Bernie's, whatever, it's just not going to happen. And that was very, very successful in Nevada, okay? And people I had on my show 10 years ago were running Nevada 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
So we were very successful in Nevada, organizing those people.
Yeah, I remember talking with you about that before, and you mentioning that. And do you have any? If you got a couple extra minutes, Ed, I'm curious if you have any thoughts or predictions on Trump in terms of he's a lot of these people and you've seen a lot of this up close in terms of his legal woes these days.
Yeah, I predicted during the primary 2015 that Trump would wind up in prison. Okay, I never dreamed that his first indictment would be a case that I'm very familiar with, where I know all these,
right.
know all these guys. Where I got their home phone numbers, I never dreamed that. Okay.
Yeah.
This indictment in New York is a no-brainer, man. Okay, Michael Cohen has already been convicted for that. Okay,
right.
How can you convict Cohen and not convict the guy who he was working for? Just beyond belief. This Georgia stuff, man, it looks pretty good too, man. It looks like he can get a conviction down there too. And then this rape trial in Manhattan doesn't look good either. It's a defamation case, but it's really a rape trial.
That's Karen.
That doesn't look good either.
That's McDougal, right?
And this
Karen
$250 million. Sorry,
I'm sorry. That's Karen McDougal, right?
No. Campbell, I think her name is the one that Joe Tacopina is defending.
Oh, okay. It's hard to keep it all straight. There's so
No,
much.
you can't keep track of all this stuff. It's impossible.
Yeah. And then what about the secret documents case, which of course is federal? I think is probably.
Oh,
the
yeah,
most...
right. Yeah. Well, yeah, the attorneys in that case have already been disciplined. I don't see him getting out of that one either.
Yeah.
But the other one too is this $250 million lawsuit with the Attorney General in New York City. Alan Weisselberg is sitting in prison right now on similar. He's a defendant in that lawsuit too as well. And he just recently fired his Trump-provided attorneys and has hired his own attorneys loyal to him. Like, remember I described before the Rich Costello situation where they try to get their loyal attorney.
Well, you still there, Ed?
Oh, Skype goes out.
Pay for his own lawyer.
There we go.
Oh, Ed, you're cutting in and out.
You lost me?
Oh, we lost you there for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, Weisselberg is a defendant in that $250 million lawsuit. I believe he's going to settle and he's going to testify against Trump when he gets out of prison.
Really? Okay, that would be fascinating to see that.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Trump was providing lawyers for him. He just fired them. He hired his own attorney, which is a clear sign you flip.
I'll tell you what, though, it's remarkable the way that Trump has managed to, he's built his brand in a way where it's like the more legal trouble that he has, the better it is for him because he's able to raise lots of money. And I think I don't know if you have any predictions personally. I think he'll be the nominee. And then I think he'll lose in the general election, but I do think he'll be the nominee. It seems like the more trouble he has, because he's very good at doing this inclusive thing. He presents it as, it's not me they're after, it's us they're after. And then people buy into that. You've got that third of the Republican Party that's ride or die for Trump, no matter what.
Yeah, I think he just raised like $34 million or something crazy like that.
Oh yeah, just crazy numbers. Yeah.
But if you look at him, he looks exhausted. He doesn't have the same. Even me, I'm a huge. I love the whole Trump circus. You know, I used to go to all the rallies, man. You know, I sit in the press section. I love that stuff, man.
Yeah.
You know, all craziness coming out every week. You know, it just, I think the circus has left town as far as Trump goes. You know.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Well, Ed, you've been very generous with your time today. I appreciate it. Oh, was there anything else, by the way? I just want to make sure that we didn't leave out anything. Was there anything else regarding the Biden laptop story specifically that we didn't mention that you wanted to make sure to include?
Well, the only last little tidbit I could hit you with here is both Bernie Kerik and Rudy Giuliani were on Twitter alluding that that there was child porn on the laptop. So I wrote a little message to Rudy, and I said, and I tagged Kerik, and I said, well, you know, listen, if you guys, you know, if you're spreading this laptop material around and there's child pornography on it, then you guys are guilty of distributing child pornography.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not even 2 hours later, Rudy announces that they turned over the laptop to the state police, and he blocked me. Okay.
Wow.